Good morning, Abundant Life. This is Pastor Chris. Today we're going to wrap up our study of John chapter 11, verses 1 through 45. This is the story of Lazarus, of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. And we've already looked at the fact Jesus wept. Well, why did he weep? Well, he didn't weep with the older sister, Martha. He had a theological discussion with her. But he wept because that's what Mary needed. She was connecting emotionally, and so Jesus cried with her. You see, God approaches us as we need to be approached. And that might differ from person to person. Jesus relates to each of us differently. Again, both sisters, when they saw Jesus, said the exact same thing. If you had been here, he wouldn't have died. They both felt that same frustration, probably, yeah, the same anger with Jesus for not getting there on time. And he gave them two completely different responses, and each response was what that person needed to hear to get through this process. Martha needed to know there was hope. Martha needed to know there was the chance of resurrection. That's what Jesus gave her. Mary needed somebody to help her work through the sorrow, and that's what Jesus gave her. Even though he knows your sorrow is not going to last, is what she needed from him in that moment. Now, we've already seen in Luke's story of these two women that they had a history of each thinking the other was wrong and how they responded to Jesus. Tell her to get in the kitchen to help me. They're two different women. They have two different mindsets. Both of them love their brother. Both of them approach grief differently, and Jesus handles them differently. Does this mean that there are different ways that different people have in connecting with Jesus? That's exactly what it means. Some people are going to connect with their faith on a cerebral level. Some people are going to connect on an emotional level. Some people are going to worship in different ways. Some people like a more, I don't want to use the word charismatic, but you know what I mean. They like what a livelier worship service, more demonstrative, raising their hands. Awesome. Some people like the quiet of a ritual, of responsive readings, of silent meditation because that brings them into focus with God. And the problem is, each of them tend to look at the other one and say, "You're doing it wrong." Ah, they're connecting how they connect. The only time this is ever a problem is when we do that, when we say, "You're doing it wrong. You need to connect with God the way I connect with God." Ridiculous. We don't serve that way. We don't expect everybody to serve God the same way. Paul talks about that when he gives his great metaphor of the body. The eye can't say to the hand, "I have no need of you." You need an eye, you need a hand, you need all different parts of the body. Think about what it takes just to make a church run. You need to have people that are good with numbers. What do numbers have to do with the church? Everything. We have bills to pay. We have finances to take care of. I'm terrible with that stuff. If I was put in charge of that stuff, I guarantee you the church is going to go broke. Not because I'm stealing anything, because I am incompetent when it comes to math. This is why my wife doesn't even let me balance our checkbook. We need people who are good with numbers. We need people who are good with technology in this day and age. Think about what it takes just to live stream our services. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. We need people who are good with computers. We need people who are good at greeting people. Again, the most important function if you want to get newcomers back, if you want to get them feeling like they've been welcomed. I've said this over and over. People will decide in about 10 seconds when they walk into a church for the first time if they'll ever come back. It's not based on preaching, it's not based on music, it is based on if they feel welcomed. Greeters are vital. We need people who are good at working with kids. We need people who are good at doing maintenance, at repairs. We need people who can teach. We need everything. If we have the same person over and over and over, the church isn't going anywhere. Think about if you had a church of nothing but me's, a church full of nothing but preachers. Oh, I shudder at that. We need diversity. We need everything, which means we're going to have people who connect with God in different ways. Jesus was smart enough to know this. Mary connects theologically. Let's talk about the fact that I'm the resurrection, I'm the life. Mary connects emotionally. All right, let's cry. You don't need answers right now. You need a shoulder to cry on. Both of those types are vital. I want to close with this story. We had one of my favorite people of all time. Uh, it was an elder that I had in Oregon. His name was Dale. Dale was a retired fireman. I can describe Dale in 2 words to you. Well, actually, 3 words. Two, no, I'm two. Yogi Bear. You think of Yogi Bear. Remember the cartoon character? Remember what he looked like? Dale kind of looked like Yogi Bear. He always wore like the hat that Yogi always used to, and he had the same personality as Yogi Bear. Dale was always in a great mood. Dale was fun to be around. My favorite Dale story is, we used to do communion meditations, and we also did offering meditations every week. And I always loved it when Dale would do the meditations because he was short. These came before the sermon, and if Dale was doing it, I knew I had plenty of time to preach. Best offering meditation he ever gave. This was right before we collected money. He stood up there and he said, "Well, get out your wallets." That was the whole meditation. I love Dale. I did. And I remember Dale's prayer once at a men's breakfast. This was right after I had gotten back from one of my trips to Africa. I think it was my first breakfast back. And Dale led the closing prayer. And he said, "Lord, thank you for bringing Chris and Debbie back safely. And thank you, Lord, for sending them in the first place. Thank you for sending people like that so I don't have to go." I love that prayer. And I talked to Dale about it afterwards. And I know he meant it kind of as a joke, but I also know he had no desire to go to Africa. But here's the thing. He made sure that the church supported us when we went. And I mean financially, and I mean in prayer. And I said, "Dale, I don't need hundreds of people coming with me to Africa. I need hundreds of people sending me. What you've done is so vitally important for us going. You didn't go with us. You didn't teach any classes there, but you made sure we were covered with financial support and prayer support and encouragement. That is absolutely vital. Don't ever underestimate that. So if you pray, "Lord, I don't really want to go," that's okay. God is still going to use you because God needs all kinds. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.